Question for EliGE. You've been with Team Liquid for 6 years now. How does this current lineup you have compare to the previous combinations that you've played with under this banner?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of roster changes, obviously, like a lot of different variations of the roster, and we've been making a lot of progression throughout all the years that I've been. Like we've never went back. We've always just like kept getting better and better through every single roster change that we've done, and I think that's shown through the results and consistency over the years. And I think that this current roster is still one of our better ones, but I mean, obviously, if we're going to compare it to 2019, I think that we're not there yet. Even 2018 was a very high level of skill for our roster, since we were getting second. I mean, we were the second best team back then for 2018. Uh, so I think that we aren't at that level yet, but we're not like too far off. Where I think that we have a lot of similar factors. We obviously, from our 2019 comparison to now, we still have me, we still have Stewie, we still have Naf. So the only changes has been Mike and Fallen. And Fallen has a lot of similar qualities to Nick, and he's a little bit more vocal as well. Obviously, we don't have like all the chemistry that we did from before. Where if we compare Nitro and I, we had like a ton of like unspoken chemistry. We know like all of our similar protocols that we like to do, and it was just like that we were just like more on the same page more often than not. Where now, like since we have two new players, there is a lot of stuff that has to be spoken and things that are assumed sometimes they're not actually so obvious, or there's a completely like different line that we want to go with for certain rounds. But like in terms of like the quality of the players, like Grim is like a very similar like quality of player to Twist. And I think Fallen isn't like the same type of player as Nick, but he has a lot of like his good qualities as well, and he brings his own stuff. So I guess to round it all up, I think that like we have like so many of like the same pieces, but it's really hard to easily replace the chemistry that you've had for so long, and a lot of things just get unsaid. So I think that we can bring it back, but we're still a bit away from the top variations of this team.
You're talking about that time to practice in Europe. You guys get to skip the play-in, so you got a few more days there. Do you see that skipping that first stage as a positive for the team with more time to practice, or a bit of a negative just because the other teams are going to have that momentum of playing through that first stage?
I think it's an advantage for us. The more we have practice here in Europe, the better we're going to be getting. I think we still have to, on some of the maps, we are playing some catch up in terms of the current meta that EU is playing. So the longer we have time to practice and theory craft on fixing and catching up and creating our game plan, is better than playing matches. So we'll be more prepared, and I see it as an advantage.
Just looking at that North American scene, you guys talk about having to play some lower tier teams. I guess it gives you a good outlook on who's around in the scene. Is there any teams or maybe players that you're seeing come up through the ranks that maybe people should keep an eye on?
Personally for me, I think some players on extra slot should definitely be looked at. Like I think OC and Fang are pretty good and can be scary. Besides that though, I think Bad News Bears have been playing pretty good as a team, and I'm actually pretty excited to see what they can do here.
The only player that I've been extremely impressed with for since we've been in NA has been Safi from Pain. He is clearly like on a higher level than everybody else that we played against from all of like the other NA teams. I don't think anyone else has been nearly as impressive as him. So if he has like any good English, or or he, honestly I would expect him to see him on like Furio or a higher tier like NA one day, without a doubt.